Uh, XRP is about to collapse the US dollar. This was made by Crypto
So
Levi.
Ethereum.
So yeah, look at this one. I like this. I like Crypto Levi, and he's been really on my mind for some time. The S&P is now up 31% over the last 5 months, the most since 2020 pandemic recovery. This marks the third biggest 5-month gain over the last 20 years. This is only 1 percentage point behind the 2008 financial crisis recovery of 32%. S&P has added a massive 16.6 trillion in value. Again, yeah, the markets have been pumping. That's more than the size of every individual stock market in the world except the US. Historic is an understatement. And again, the markets have been rallied because we have been waiting for a long time for that. Think Solana is going to do anything? Yeah, it already did like recover a bit. I'm not too sure if it's going to reach all-time highs. Don't know that much about it. Been mostly researching about XRP, but yeah, there's other coins that also, reached back all-time highs, and it's not even the end of the cycle yet. So still have potential there. But yeah.
Situation all in today's video. So I want to first talk about the historic run that we're currently seeing. The S&P 500 is now up over 31% over the last 5 months, which is the most since the 2020 pandemic recovery.
And again, we have been in a recession. We have been in a recession in 2022, and we have been in a recession in 2024, even maybe a bit 2025. And we're finally stopping that. And we saw that after the Great Depression, like the markets literally recovered.
It's the third biggest 5-month gain over the last 20 years. This is only 1 percentage point behind the 2008 financial crisis recovery of 32% from the lows. Since the April 8th low, the S&P 500 has added a massive 16.6 trillion in value. This is more than the size of every individual stock market in the world except the US. Historic is an absolute understatement. So what gives? Why are people piling into stocks, cryptocurrencies like never before?
This has happened, because it was super cheap to buy then, but people are hoping that this rally will never stop. I feel like it will slow down. It won't fully be a recession, but it will slow down in 2026. So look at that. This is what's interesting here.
Now the Fed literally has no choice but to lower interest rates, but to do economic stimulus, but to print money, much like in the 2008 financial crisis, where we saw us bottom out and absolutely explode in value very shortly thereafter. We can see 33% of US states could already be in a recession, according to Moody's analysis. Using a similar methodology in the National Bureau of Economic Research, economic activity in states like New Jersey, Illinois, Virginia, Georgia, Washington, Iowa, and Oregon is contracting. On the other hand, California, Texas, and New York, together making up for nearly 1/3 of US GDP, are expanding. This comes as goods producing sectors like agriculture, manufacturing, and construction are already in a recession, hitting industrial and rural states the hardest. And these are...
So that's what I'm worried about. What if we enter another recession? Healthcare, technology, real estate are expanding. Financial services are barely holding steady. So yeah, some of these stuff has never recovered. Look at cinemas, for example. Yeah, technology has improved like XRP. But a lot of this cryptocurrency, has not yet recovered to all-time highs. That is because the markets have fully changed. The money has fully changed. Retail and financial services, I'm guessing also tourism, it's just like money shifting really. And that's why XRP really grew up so much before any other cryptos, for this simple reason.
Always the first states to see a decline because, of course, when recessions start, it's the blue collar work that is affected first because they're most dependent on the value of everything that they're transacting with. They're buying materials. They have to pay employees to go out and physically do the work. So they're always affected first. And the digital products, like what you see mostly coming out of New York, California, and other areas such as that, take a lot longer to be affected because their overhead is so much lower and they're not affected by tariffs. They're not affected by raising, costs of goods and services and all that kind of stuff, or there being less liquidity in the markets because they simply just don't spend as much on marketing. You can see at the same time, healthcare, technology, and real estate are expanding, while financial services, retail, and hospitality are barely holding steady.
Yeah, I agree with this. Like, some of these countries are in recession, but that's because not that there isn't no money. Everything is getting super expensive. And that's what I'm worried is just when XRP will have its final run, it will start to crash. I am definitely worried about that point here, that XRP is going to be crashing hard in that part. Like exactly when it has some great technology, but I know it's going to keep building.
U.S. economic conditions are varying much by state depending on the industry that you're within. Now, I want you guys to think about something. What industries are doing the absolute best right now? Technology is doing amazing. Why? Because technology is what solves the problems that we're in today. Blockchain technology is what solves the financial conditions that we're in today. That's why people are putting a disproportionate amount of money into XRP, Bitcoin, Solana, these financial products basically that solve the financial issues with the dollar. That's why people are putting a lot of money into AI right now because, of course, this reduces...
It's like called diversifying. Yeah, Levi has a fair point. A lot of this money is going into technology, and you can see that these companies are actually buying here. Now they're doubling down basically in that sense. They're tripling down.
This is the cost of employment, and this is something that is infinitely scalable, infinitely productive, and of course it saves companies potentially billions of dollars per company, for these larger ones. There's a lot of big problems being solved right now, and essentially if we're looking to fix the problems we have, most of the government will probably be running on an AI in the next 10 years. And
maybe that's why Jerome Powell doesn't want to cut the full interest rates or cut everything yet, because of exact data like this. It's still not 100% certain if we are in recession or not.
Will drastically reduce the amount of money that's required for public services. And that, of course, is once again going to massively change the way that our economies work. Now, I want to highlight a few things. Solana just surpassed $240 per coin, and volatility in the crypto market is rising astronomically.
This is where, these cryptos kind of win here. So they double down, and they actually won.
Buy and sell in the market. Some people say it's bearish, some people say it's bullish, but what you can see right here, the max paying price for Bitcoin is about 112. The max paying price for Ethereum is 4,400. So just because, yes, the Fed is likely to start printing money again and lowering rates very soon, it doesn't mean that the short term is not going to see some volatility. And so that's why
And in September, that's very normal to see these type of price crashes. That's why XRP has been at $3 for such a long time.
We've seen XRP and some other things actually go down a little bit, and it's possible that we bottom out at 4,400 for Ethereum and 212 for Bitcoin, and maybe like 290-ish for XRP based off of this news. So do keep that in mind. Just because we're not, going up all the time does not mean that the general sentiment or the general, market direction is not going to be bullish. This is just an opportunity, in my point of view, to essentially buy these dips, and that's precisely why my particular indicator, my buy and sell indicator known as the Crusader signal, has actually been offering some sell signals as of recently. We're pretty much overbought now when it comes to the stochastic RSI. You can see we've consistently been touching these higher resistance lines, and you can see we just started to see a...
So yeah, I feel like this is a pretty fair analysis. This is pretty normal to see this in September and then hopefully a rally back up here. It is kind of concerning, but there is definitely a lot of bullish news that makes me still bullish on XRP. But I also want to report on bad news and not just good news. Because when we see like that, it tells what Jerome Powell is thinking. Yes, a lot of these countries are expanding and they need XRP. Sorry about that. And a lot of them, they are not bullish enough. They are actually negative or showing hints of a recession, which further confirms that 2026 might be worse than we might expect.